And I'm back. And you know what? I got the microphone to work. So I hope this sounds okay. I hope it sounds better than it normally does. But this is the first time I'm using the microphone. I'm told that that little rainbow light thing is indicated that it's on. So good. I'm back from my travels. I got on a plane on Valentine's Day. Stephanie was having a tea at the house that we own together in Ohio, and she had like 30 people over, and I'd send flowers, but I don't know, honestly, there wasn't much thinking involved. Like, all of a sudden, the voice in my head said, just get on a plane and go. So Saturday I got up 5 o'clock in the morning, got on the plane, flew to Chicago to change plane, because the earliest itinerary had me getting into Akron Airport at 5:17 p.m. and this tea was supposed to end at 6. So I was hoping to get there just before everybody left. I get to Chicago, the flight's delayed. I did have my first Chicago beef. Those things are good. And that was just an airport thing. I was, from watching The Bear, I want to tell what a Chicago beef was. Now I know. It's good stuff. Much better than pizza. Yeah. Chicago, I give you thumbs up on the beach and thumbs very sideways on the pizza. It's tasty, but it's not pizza. And I might be back in Chicago end of March, so maybe I shouldn't say too much about it at this point. It's that could be a violent town. I don't want anybody taking exception to the blathering boomer criticizing that stuff that they call pizza. Anyway, um, so I come back. I come back from my week in Ohio. We had some work to do. We're actually opening a community center there in Akron. Stephanie and I pooled our resources, and we're opening a place for open mics and art creation, and maybe an art gallery, and there'll be yoga classes and literary groups and that kind of stuff. We just got our hands on the property, and a lot of stuff had to be done. So besides surprising Stephanie on Valentine's Day, which she really liked, I was kind of happy about that. You know, yeah, she really did like it. But there was work to do, so I hung around until Thursday. I got on a plane coming back. So I get on the plane, and the guy is already in the seat next to the one I'm about to sit in. And I look at him. This guy looks familiar. He looks familiar, and I'm thinking, who could this be? And, he looks familiar. I said it 3 times already, maybe 4. He looked familiar. Okay, so I'm looking. I'm thinking. I'm looking. It's Frankie Valli. That's Frank. I'm sitting next to Frankie Valli. So I had a lot to talk to Frankie about, because it happens at the Four Seasons back in 1972 at the Schaefer Music Festival in Central Park. Jay and the Americans opened for the Four Seasons. That was my very first concert. And I remember specifically that the Four Seasons were running late, and Jay and the Americans had to keep on playing because the Four Seasons were not in the building. So they ran out of songs. Jay and the Americans ran out of songs, and they started repeating their hits. Finally, the Four Seasons showed up, wearing all the same blue sparkly clothes. And yeah, it was really good. Anyway, I was wondering if the guy sitting next to me, supposedly Frankie Valli, would remember that show. But I'm like, is this really Frankie Valli? Now, mind you, I have a bit of a history, more than a bit of a history, of spotting people who are not the people I think I'm spotting. My reputation preceded me with Stephanie. We went to a Laker. I had Laker season seats for years. Stars come to the games, and I knew where Penny Marshall sat. I knew where Andy Garcia sat. I knew, aging myself, going way back, I knew where Diane Canna sat. So that was fishing the barrel to point them out. But it seemed like every time I went out on a limb and tried to point somebody out, I generally be wrong. I tried to get Cuba Gooding's autograph for my children from a person who was not Cuba Gooding Jr., other stuff like that. So I start going to the games with Stephanie, and the first time we go to a game, I spot this guy that I am sure is Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard from the Star Trek, the not the William Shatner Star Trek, the next Star Trek, the one I never bothered watching, that had the guy from Roots as a robot or whatever. I couldn't get into that. So, but now I'm going to be on a plane sitting next to Frankie Valli. I'm pretty sure of it anyway. So we're still on the ground, and I, as discreetly as possible, snapped a picture of him. Let me get. So here's the picture I took. Oops, there. So there you see it. And once again, here's Frankie Valli. So we're still on the ground, so I could still text. So I text that picture of Stephanie. I'm like, Stephanie, I'm sitting next to Frankie Valli on the plane back to LA. And her response was just to laugh at me. Long story short, not only was it not Frankie Valli, but this guy sitting next to him was torture. Absolute torture. This guy talked nonstop, 5-hour and 13-minute flight. He just did not stop talking. Like I said, I go to these Laker games for years. I go with different people to the game, and I had this lawyer who actually was instrumental in helping me secure my company, the company that I've owned for the last 32 years. Anyway, to thank her for the amazing job she did getting my company, legally in my name, to thank her, I took her to a Laker game, several actually. But it was lawyer client, but into the friend zone too, not into the. It never got R-rated or even PG-13 with her. So we're at the game, and she spots somebody. I don't remember who it was. I didn't have any reason to question it, and then I spot Jim Belushi. She's like, "That's not Jim Belushi." I'm like, I thought it was Jim Belushi, whatever. Then I spotted Greg Kinnear. I was pretty sure it was Greg Kinnear. She goes, "No," much more. "No, that is not Greg Kinnear." And now I need to find, I need a Hail Mary. I had to spot somebody that she's going to agree with. And there he was. The guy's walking right past us, and I kind of put my arm around her shoulder, and I lean in, and I wonder if she thought I was going to kiss her, but that's not where it was at. But I whisper in her ear and I point. Spike Lee. That resulted in the first and only time I've ever been slapped in the face by a woman. And this prim and proper, high-powered attorney said to me the following: "Just because it's a fucking black guy wearing fucking glasses doesn't mean it's fucking Spike Lee." So I let it go. What was I going to do? I let it go for the moment. But I had the last word, because the next day she got to her desk in her high-power office at the high-power law firm she works for. When she got to work the next morning after that Laker game, when she slapped me, going down in Blather history as the first and only woman to slap the blathering boomer in the face, there were flowers and a card. And the card said, "Yo, Liz, so cool seeing you at the Laker game last night. Who's that good-looking white guy you were with? Love, Spike." So, yeah, that story ends there. But there's a sequel to the story, because a couple of months later, my friend Jeff, another guy, well, everybody I know is dying. Jeff died some years ago. Jeff Stromberg. Retirement will kill you. Retirement killed Jeff Stromberg. Anyway, he and I were major Patti Smith fans. Patti Smith was playing at Ford Theater in LA. So we had tickets. It was general admission. So we go in there and we get kind of greedy. There's seats available in the back, but we want to be up closer. We want to see, we want to get closer to Patti. So we're walking, and it's starting to become obvious there aren't any seats. But then we see an empty seat next to which is a purse. There's a pretty good looking woman sitting to the left of the purse. So we said, is that seat taken? And she goes, no. And she picks up her purse, which was very, very obliging of her. And there we go. We sat down. We sit down, and the show hadn't started yet. And now she stands up. She has to go to the bathroom. And she says to me, will you watch my purse while I go to the bathroom? I'm thinking, wow, somebody I never met before. Nice enough to give us her seats, and wow, how trusting. I guess she knows how important these seats were, though we weren't getting up. Whatever was in her purse wasn't worth losing those seats over. But nevertheless, she left her purse. She went to the bathroom. Now, mind you, if you've heard the rest of the story, I'm very, very bad at spotting people. She comes back from the bathroom, and I'm so hesitant. I look up at her, though. I'm looking. I'm like, I got to say it. I got to say it. And I said, do people ever tell you you look just like Rosanna Arquette? And she said, all the time. Probably because I am Rosanna Arquette. Whoa. Finally, a win. But no. Does the blathering boomer take the win? No, I couldn't just let it go with that. So I said the first thing that came to my mind, oh, Rosanna, I loved True Romance. And Rosanna said to me, I love True Romance too, and I thought my sister Patricia was really good in it. You know those Southwest Airlines commercial, want to get away? That was me. That was me. Okay, so the rest of this is going to be a continuation of the story. Chapter 1 took place on December 4th. I'm trying to do this 50 years in real time from the actual events. So I did a podcast on December 4th, 2025, which was exactly 50 years from December 4th, 1975. And that's the day that I was arrested. And I did another one the following week about how my bail wasn't reduced from the $50,000 bail that was set. And mind you, that's about $310,000 in today's money. And I did that, December 11th, 12th, whatever. I'll put links to it in the description to this video if you want to see chapter 1, chapter 2. Here comes chapter 3. So where we left off was I had the bail reduction hearing, and my bail had been set at $50,000. Like I said, the DA was asking for 25, and the judge wanted him to double it because I was indicted on 2 counts. So $50,000 bail, $300,000 in today's money. Now, those of you who have dealt with bail bondsmen probably know that you generally have to put up some kind of real property in order to secure a bail bond. Well, we lived in a little 1-bedroom apartment owned by Fred Trump, by the way. Not that that's particularly relevant, but what's relevant is we didn't own any real estate. My father my father was a great, great man. He worked so hard. He worked really, really hard. But he couldn't come up with that kind of money. So I sat in county jail for what seemed like an eternity. And then one morning, the guard came to my cell and said, come with me. And I'd been bailed out. What my father did, I have an uncle, Uncle Norman, who let's just say he had a relationship with a bail bond person. And what he did was he talked the bail bondsman into, instead of taking real estate, which we didn't have, he talked him into taking $25,000 cash, which we also didn't have. I know nothing about this. I'm just sitting in jail this whole time. And so my father, my dear, pretty much everybody who had anything to do with this is gone now. My cousin Eddie, wonderful, wonderful cousin, really like a brother. He put up $5,000. My uncle Sammy, my father's older brother, he put up $5,000. My father's boss put up $5,000. My father's coworker put up 5,000, and my father was able to scrape together 5 of his own, $25,000 cash bail. Bondsman is going to keep the whole thing if I run, and he's going to keep $5,000, which is his standard fee, if I surrender. And they sent me home. This is in late. I was home before Christmas, late December 1975. I get out. So now I'm completely horrified, devastated. It's not lost on me what this did to my parents, and I want to start trying to make good on this. And the very first thing I can do is get a job while I'm on bail and start working to cover my legal expenses. So through some connections, there was a guy in the garment center that needed a part-time bookkeeper. I had just basically graduated, or I was about to graduate. I completed my 4.5 years with an accounting degree. So getting a bookkeeping job was easy. I had a job in the garment center from the family connection. I had another job through a company called Account Temp. So I was a temp. And then nights and weekends, I drove for a car service near the 20th Avenue West End subway train station. So I'm working 3 jobs. The lawyer was a $5,000 retainer. The bail bond was going to cost $5,000. And I'm out there cranking away. Trying to make some money because I want to cover my legal expenses. The emotional tax that this took on my parents was enough. It didn't have to take a financial tax as well. So I'm trying everything I could. Meanwhile, I have a case. I'm on bail with an A2 felony, which carries a minimum of 8 1/3 to life, up to 25 to life. I got an A3 felony, which carries a minimum of 1 year to life, maximum 6 years to life. And I have a misdemeanor, which carries 1 year of county jail time. It's a mess. I meet a guy. Now, mind you, I live in the Bensonhurst section of Brooklyn, and there were good fellas and their lawyers among the population thereof. And one of the guys comes up to me, goes, "Hey, I got a lawyer friend. He can get you off of this." And I'm thinking, and the fact of the matter is, I did have a case, because when you look at the indictments and they talk about the physical evidence against me, all of it said destroyed in testing. Now, he thinks I can get off because the physical evidence is destroyed in testing. And I'm thinking, well, if I'm found guilty, I'm going to do all the time. I'm going to do a minimum of 8 1/3 years. And I was pretty sure, being the way I was back in those days, that I was not going to survive 8 1/3 years in prison and come out as me. I was going to come out as some kind of other version, some kind of nasty, hardened version of me. And who knows what would have happened during those 8 1/3 years. So as much of a gambler as I am, I do like to bet on ball games. I'll admit that. So that's a whole podcast in and of itself. I didn't want to gamble with that. The conversations with the judge, we were able to get the best thing my lawyer did was he was able to get the judge away from Judge John Klein and into the hands of Judge Arnold Proskin, who was much more lenient and liberal and reasonable. John Klein gave out time like Halloween candy at a schoolyard or whatever. John Klein, they call him the hanging judges, but John Clyne. You can look him up on the internet as pertains to the Rockefeller drug laws. You did not want to be in his courtroom. So Proskin got me moved. I mean, my attorney Michael Feit got me moved to Judge Proskin's courtroom, and the conversations kind of went around. Well, the conversation with the DA and my lawyer, Michael Feit, used to work in the DA's office, and that's when he knew Judge Proskin. They knew each other from the DA's office in Albany County, New York. So, long story short, it comes back that if I plead guilty to the A3 felony, they'll drop the A2 felony and they'll drop the misdemeanor. And I went to grade school with the son of a New York State senator. I used to play at their house, and he was always very fond of me. So I had a state senator willing to talk to the judge on my behalf. This was my first and only arrest. I mean, I had this was a non-violent, and this wasn't heroin or cocaine. This was 100 hits of LSD, which nowadays, I'm not condoning what I did, but what I did was stupid, especially selling it to a state trooper. But in this day and age now, this would be probation, even if, So anyway, and the Rockefeller drug laws were not very popular. Nelson Rockefeller wanted to be president, and he enacted the toughest drug law in the country back in September of 1973. I got busted in December of 75, got caught up in that web, in that net. It seemed pretty clear that if I were to plead guilty to the A3, not only would they drop the A2 and the misdemeanor, but it would be very likely that the judge would recommend I do something close to the one, because the A3 carried anything between 1 to life and 6 to life. And the to life is the key thing of that. I mean, that was Rockefeller's whole selling point: life sentences for pushers. But somehow he put LSD in the same category as heroin and cocaine and amphetamines and all that. Well, speaking of amphetamines, I was abusing them. I mean, it started out with studying for finals in college and, cramming a whole semester's worth of work into 3 days. I weighed 140 pounds. I weigh 100 pounds more than that now. So, my life, and that's the other thing too. Maybe I would have gotten off. Maybe the good fellow lawyer would have gotten me off on a technicality. But where would I have been? I don't say that I got rehabbed in prison, quite the opposite, but I needed a pause. I really did. And in the upcoming weeks, over the upcoming year plus, I'll be telling the story of my imprisonment in kind of in real time, except 50 years later. So there's certain dates that'll come up. March 12th is a big one that's coming up in a few weeks. But for now, it was 50 years ago this week that I pleaded guilty. And what I wasn't happy about was they remanded me. And a good friend of mine thought remanded was a good thing. No, remanded is not a good thing. Remanded means they revoked my bail and locked me up. So that day, 50 years ago this week, I popped my last 2 black beauties, biphetamine, very powerful amphetamine, diet pill. Like I say, I weighed 140 pounds and I was 6'1". And I drove up to Albany and I pleaded guilty. Before I did that, I gave the keys to my car to a good friend because I had agreed to let my friend Jeff, who I just talked about in the Patti Smith story, I was letting him use my car while I was away. And I said, and this is my friend JD, who I hope to actually have come on this podcast. She's my friend on Facebook, and we've exchanged a couple of emails. She watched the December 4th thing, and she was a very, very major supporter of mine. But I remember the last thing I said to her as I handed her the keys to my car to walk into the courtroom to plead guilty and surrender. I said, if anybody asks, tell them I went in high and happy. And I went into the courtroom, and the judge basically gave me a lecture and told me that he was going to sentence me to the 1 year to life with a recommendation. Oh, that's the other thing too. He showed it. He had a stack of character, character, what do you call it? Not character references, whatever you call it. A lot of people wrote letters on my behalf. So he had a stack of them. He had Monsignor Dunn. He had Senator Lewis, all basically vouching for my character. And he said, young man, hopefully you won't try it. His exact words, Hopefully you won't try to take a shortcut again. And he sentenced me to 1 year to life with a recommendation on the record to the parole board that they release me after 1 year. And that was it. They handcuffed me and took me into the back, and I was off to Albany County Jail, a place I was already a little too familiar with from waiting to get bailed out. And that was when I started doing my time. So, so that's chapter 3. That's chapter 3. 50 years ago today, I'd been back in Albany County Jail for a few days. Oh, but here's the thing. Here's the corker to it. New York had what's called an indeterminate sentence. I think in some places you sentence to 4 years, you get 4 years, you get 5 years, you get 10 years, you get whatever you get. Back then in New York, I'm not sure how it is now. I haven't committed another felony. Well, I haven't got caught committing another felony anyway. There have been no more felony convictions. There have been no more felony convictions since all that. Because there have been no more felony convictions since then, I'm not firsthand aware of how it works. But see, in New York, it was called an indeterminate sentence. So they didn't give you 3 years. They gave you 1 to 3 or 2 to 4 or 5 to 10. But in my case, it was 1 to life. Here's where that matters, because let's say you're doing 2 to 4. Now, anybody who goes into state prison goes to state prison via county jail. You don't just walk right. Again, this is 1975 or now 1976 information. So I don't want to guarantee the accuracy of this in present day. But at the time, they had what's called indeterminate sentences. And I was on the mother of all indeterminate sentences, 1 year to life, which the guys in county jail found really funny, by the way. I did not share their sense of humor on that particular topic. In any case, you're doing, let's say, 2 to 4, you go to county jail for a month. Well, now you're doing 2 to 3 years, 11 months. The time you do in county jail comes off the back end of your sentence. So, a 2 to 4 would mean you've seen the parole board in 2 years, but you have to, you max out, they say, you max out. That's called doing the entire of your sentence. You max out. You would max out instead of in 4 years, but you did a month in county jail. Now you max out in 3 years, 11 months. Well, my maximum was life. So every day I spent in county jail was a wasted day, because after day 1, I'm doing life minus 1 day. And after 2 days, I'm doing life minus 2 days, etc., etc. The worst day. Oh, this was 1976. You know what 1976 was? Because I went in late February 1976. 1976 was a leap year. So February 29th, I'm sitting there the whole day. I'm like, not only doesn't this count, but it's got to be a fucking leap year. You got to be kidding me. So I'm in there. Anyway, the time went by so slow. And I'm going to get to the next chapter, because I am now caught up with the 50 years ago. So I'm back in county jail. Oh man. And well, back to the whole Judge Klein thing. 2 of my co-defendants had Judge Klein, for a judge. Not only that, but they didn't get bailed out. So I go back in there. I'm on bail from late December to late February. So I'm gone for 2 months. I go back, and there's Gary Miles and John Ryan. They're still in county jail. I come in, they start walking down the corridor, and I hear this voice go, "He's back." And laughter. And mind you, I was still pretty high from the Black Beauty, so I found that pretty funny at the time too, and kind of ironic. And I kind of liked it that they knew my personality enough to kind of like roll their eye. "Oh, he's back. Here we go." Because I was definitely a blathering boomer, especially with a couple of Black Beauties in me. I disavow the use of amphetamines heavily. Spoiler alert, I did not go back to amphetamines. I see what they do to people. And if you're thinking about taking them, you know, I can't say I'm sorry that I popped a couple to study for finals because I wouldn't passed my course, but I should have let it go with that. I started taking them recreationally after that, and that was a big mistake. Apparently, I just read up on it. I asked Grok, my AI friend, about black beauties. He said they're called biphetamine, and I guess they're close. I guess the modern day equivalent is Adderall. I've never tried Adderall. I don't know. So there was a story about this week in 1975. I'm sorry, this week in 1976. And with that, the boomer has blathered.